Welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the show. Glad you could join me here today on this Motivation and Mindset Monday. I can't wait to take you through a topic that I've really been exploring myself over the past couple of weeks. The global pandemic times that we are in right now has led to a lot of introspection for many people. And that simply involves us thinking about what's our life like? What do we want it to be like, especially when we come out of these times? And I think that this really, when we look at the current times that we're in right now, we can understand that this can be used as a metaphor for many other times that we've had in our life previous to this, as well as other uncertain times we will have in the future. Now, there is a bonus to this. There is a good thing that can come out of this, and that is understanding what you miss from your life before, giving more energy, more vitality to that in the future, but also looking at your life. What could you do without that maybe you thought that you had to have before? And what things do you really want in the future for yourself, your family, your loved ones? I've been doing a lot of that exploring, and that's because, like many people, I've been spending a lot more time at home. I have worked a lot more from home, and I've moved out of the city of Boston, at least temporarily for right now. And the reason is that being in the city right now is not the same place that we used to live. It's simply not. Boston is no longer Boston. Anybody who lives there can attest for that, and that's probably like a lot of the major cities. It is fearfulness. It is, and I'm not saying it's without warrant, but what I'm saying is it's no longer the city that I remember, and it's too bad. But again, things change. There is an ebb and flow to life, and that doesn't necessarily mean it's always a bad thing. And I also want people to believe and understand I don't believe that this is a forever situation. I certainly don't believe that this is a new normal. I believe that normal is whatever we choose it to be. I believe normal is a state of your mind. We all have a new normal, or we have our normal. Our normal is the life that we're typically used to living. We get the results that we're used to getting. We don't get new results. We don't get better results. We don't often get worse results on an everyday basis. Sure, there's an ebb and flow, but we typically get the results that we've typically been used to getting. And that's because of the normal. That's our normal state of thinking. I've gone through that before because we have to remember that our subconscious plays out every day in our life. 95% of our actions are unconscious. 95% of our thoughts are unconscious. They are programs continue to play in the background. Well, if their programs continue to play in the background, we can understand that, okay, well, if these thoughts continue to come up, we're going to feel these feelings. And if these feelings always continue to come up, well, we're going to take these specific actions. Good, bad, indifferent, whatever it might be. But that's what becomes our life, right? Because our life, when we look at it, when it's all said and done, well, it's essentially the summation, the totality of all of our thoughts, feelings, and actions. Well, one thing I want to explore with you today, and something that I've really been thinking a lot about, is I come from a different perspective. So you have to understand is that I thought that everything would be taken from me at 17 years old, because at that moment it was. So I lived for a good half a decade without realizing that things could get better and will get better. So when you come from a point of view that doctors don't know what's wrong with you, that eventually when you get all these different diagnoses of your immune system essentially shutting down with Addison's disease and autoimmune issues and POTS and blood sugar issues and immune dysfunction, you don't look like things are going to be very good for you in the future. You see that most people that have these things, well, they don't live a very long life. And so you start to see the shortness of life. So my perspective, even though I'm just a little over, well, let's say 20 plus years removed from that 17-year-old kid, is that, 2 decades later, that's still with me. I still look at it as there's this shortness to life. And so I know not everybody views this, but it really hit home because my daughters are turning 6 and 8 years old this summer. So as they're 1 year older, I just think back, I think about myself when I was 13 years old, 14 years old, going into high school. And at that moment, when I went to high school, things were different. I was in school, and then I would be studying. I would be playing sports. Like, it was scheduled to the max. Like, I was essentially on autopilot, and I have 3 other siblings. So it's just like always things are moving, and you're just kind of in it, from second to second. There's not that slowness where maybe there is right now. And my work, of course, is very, very busy. What I do for my work, I love. It's a passion of mine. And there's always this dichotomy or this tug of war of, okay, you need to spend time on your work, do what you're meant to do, right? Live your purpose. But also you have this family and they're the most important thing to you. Well, you need to spend a lot more time with them. So I want to go back to this, and really, you can tell that I've been playing these things out in my brain for the last couple of months. I look at my 8-year-old daughter. And again, not everybody looks at it this way. Some people say, like you're looking at this too deep, but not for me. Again, like I'm allowed to have my own unique perspective and you can have yours. So I'm going to share with you how this applies to relationships, your body, wellness, your career, spirituality, etc. But when I look at my 8-year-old daughter now and I say, it's amazing. And here's the thing. Have I done enough? Have I done enough in terms of time? Have I done enough in terms of teaching? She's already 8. The majority of that programming has been set in. Have I done a good job? Could I have done better? Where could I have done better? Am I spending enough time? Like I said, am I teaching her all of life's, lessons that I've learned? I don't know them all, but have I taught her what I've learned so far? And because I look at it, well, if she's like me and when she goes to high school, then she's basically locked on for sports and studies and friends, well, that's kind of the next phase to her life. And that's a great phase as well. But she's maybe going to be influenced then more by her friends and by other things going on. And so like when I look at it, well, then how many years more do I have? And that's not from a negative standpoint, because this is life. This is, again, I try to share this with people. You don't fight what is. You work with what is, and you enjoy what is. You enjoy this journey of life. If I could look back at that 17-year-old, he's struggling, no longer has the life that he used to, brain fog, can't study like he used to, can't play sports like he used to because his mitochondria have been destroyed, inflammation over the entire body. Well, what can you say? How can you help that person? And it's tough to say that eventually it's going to be okay. But what you can start to say is just, listen, not every day is going to be okay. Not every day is going to feel good. But I want you to learn and understand the process. Not every day is going to be great. It's not. Don't say that it is. You don't need to pretend that it is, but learn through the process. Grow through this process. Because on the other side, you don't know when it's going to be over, but it will be over. And when it's over, remember those lessons. Don't repeat them. So to this day, I do my best to not repeat those. If I feel myself getting run down, well, the world stops then because I need to take care of me. Because ideally, on a daily basis, I'm trying to take care of everyone else that I can. So one thing I want to share with you is this. It's this concept of kicking the can down the road. And the reason why I mentioned it with my daughter, that I mentioned it with the lessons I want to teach her, is that I have a lot of priorities in life right now. But we have to be careful because we can always say, well, I'll teach those next year. I'll take more time off next year. I will buy the house next year. I'll put in the pool next year, right? All of those different things. Or I read this great article many, many years ago. I'm a young 20-year-old reading things like this because, again, when you get very ill, an illness makes you very different. And so I became very different than other 20-something-year-olds. I just was different, not on purpose, but by life's, well, now I can see as by one of life's great teachings to me, right? And I was able to overcome that, and I live a better life now because of it, because now I'm healthier than I was even as a teenager. I don't have allergies like I did as a teenager and child. I don't have any of those issues anymore, and I'm very grateful for that. There's no way that would have happened had I not gone through what I went through. What I'd like to say is this, is that I read an article very, very early in my 20s, well before I was even thinking about having children. I didn't have children until my early 30s. So when I look at this, I read this article called Don't Wait, or the title of the article was this, Put Up the Net Sooner. And what the article went on, it was by a dad who his kids had already grown up. Maybe they were off to college. And he was starting to look back on his past. And the article is simply a metaphor to put up the basketball net sooner, to get out there after work, because we still have to work. We still have to, we can't just pretend that we don't have other responsibilities, but put up the net sooner. And it's a great analogy to simply say this. The thing that you want to do it sooner. Don't do it next year. Don't do it 5 years from now. Do it sooner. Not everything can happen tomorrow. I tell people that in my health practice all the time. Listen, you're not well right now, right? We're not kidding anybody. You've got an autoimmune issue. You've got gut issues. You might have a parasite. You might have candida overgrowth, whatever it is. You're not well, okay? But that's okay. That's also okay. So the first thing is to just deep breath, relax. It's all going to be okay. It's all going to be okay. So once we know that it's all going to be okay, now there's the timeline involved. Okay, so what can we do? Well, we can simply begin to work the process. That's it. And so I look at it like this. Think about it. I need to live the best life that I can with the least amount of regrets that I can have. That's it. That's why my life is going to be totally different than yours. Totally different. And yours could be radically different than your family. And that's what a lot of families don't understand, is that the way that you live your life, if it's different than theirs, doesn't mean that you don't respect them, doesn't mean that you don't care for them, doesn't mean that you don't love them. It's just you're doing your thing because you're living a life that's authentic to you. And you're doing it with no regrets. So when I look at my life, I say, I need to do these specific things so that I don't have any regrets. I have these specific things that I need to do in all areas of my life. Spirituality, relationships with my parents, with my siblings, with my wife, with my kids, with my friends, with my teams. There are things that I want to do, right? And then there's a hierarchy of those as well. There's my children, there's my wife. That's the top of my hierarchy. Yours might be different relationships. Might be your parents. It might be your grandparents where you're at in this phase of your life, whatever it is. And that's what you need to do for you. Now, what do you need to do within that? That's how we look at it. And for me, I need to do more, not in terms of, yes, of course, like I want to spend time with my girls doing specific sports or dance or whatever it might be, whatever they're into. Not what I'm into, but whatever they're into, I want to spend the time making sure that I support them in that. But more so, what I would regret more so than that is simply that I didn't live my authentic life as a role model for them, but also that I didn't teach them life's lessons. And I have been teaching that. I've been talking much more to them with both my 6 and 8-year-olds, soon to be 6 and 8, is about all of the different things that I share with you on these Mindset and Motivation Mondays. Just a little different than a child. I don't dilute it so much because they're a child. I allow them to grow into it. That's how I look at my own education. When I was getting into this field, there were some things that I just plain didn't get. I just didn't get it. But I wasn't looking for it to be dumbed down for me. I simply wanted to say, I'll grow into this information. I'm going to come back. I'm going to read this textbook a year from now. And I did. And I said, oh, now I get it. Or I have a little bit more now of background. Why? Because I read 100 other books, a lot of other different articles, had more experience, and I could view it in a different way. So I want my kids to simply hear my message, which isn't even my message. It's a message of authenticity. It's a message of truly how the world works and has worked for many thousands of years. Whether we like to believe it or not, there were many years that I didn't believe it. I chose not to believe it, but it didn't make it any less true. Just because I refused to believe it didn't make all of these different practices less true. I simply wasn't working them. And you know what? I actually was. That's the thing. You're always working the truths of life. They're always manifesting themselves. It's one of those things, it's like whatever you believe, you'll receive. And people are like, well, I don't believe that, but I'm getting this, this, and this. Listen, it's not about specifics. It's about your overall belief. It's about embodying who you believe you are. It's about being one with what you want in life. And there are a lot of people who keep getting the sicknesses over and over, whatever it might be. They're relapsing. And it's because at a deeper, authentic-based level to them, that's how they see themselves. And again, this is not going to resonate with everyone, but you have to understand that if we want that different life, we need to begin to resonate with that new person. Part of that is to understand, like, listen, I have these things that I want to accomplish. And if I don't do them, then I'm going to regret them. So now that's the beautiful thing. If you know what you would regret in life not doing, then you begin to map out what you need to do. And you don't necessarily know how to do them at all. That's not part of this. That's not saying you have all the answers. But what it says is you're going to begin to work the process. Because as you work the process, you begin to change. The first part is this. You're now open to change. You wouldn't be working the process if you didn't even have an inkling that it might happen, that it might work. So you've suspended disbelief. You've actually told your subconscious there might be another way. And that's all that your subconscious, and that's all your mind and body need, your body being your nervous system need, in order to say, we are open to possibility. We are open to change. And we believe that we can do it. We don't know how yet. The how is not even the most important part. It's being open that matters the most. But first, starting with, what would you regret? And then understanding that you can't keep kicking that can down the road. If you continue to kick it down the road before you know it, you've run out of time. And here's why I share that with you. Because if there's a goal you want to achieve, it can't always be done within 3 months or even 6 months. You might need a year to put it into motion. So that's the thing. If you want to start now, your job was always in person, you want to start to work more remotely, it might take a year to transition with your work, right? To show them that you could do it remotely or whatever it might be. So that's why you can't say, oh yeah, this is what I want to do. I'll start working on it next year. Well, now you're 2 years out. So we have to look at timelines as well. That also matters. There's a couple things we want to also be truthful about. And that's why even on Mindset Motivation Mondays, I want to also be truthful with you, right? Like it's not just about motivation. It's not about inspiration. Those things matter. You need to be doing and getting those things on a daily basis. But a big thing is this, is that to live a life with no regrets, there are going to be some sacrifices made. Because if you want more time with your family, you might be sacrificing a little bit on the career side, at least temporarily. That might mean you might sacrifice a little bit on the promotions or the finances or whatever it might be. But you might be okay with that for the 10 years or so. Let's say like, I don't know your years, but let's say it's like 5 years old to 15 years old with your kids, like whatever it might be. Again, I'm just throwing out numbers. That's going to be your time. Okay. And then you still say, oh, well, I have plenty of time. I'm going to be 45 years old, 55 years old, whatever, however old you're going to be. And I'll then be able to turn it back on a little bit more for work. Or you've used maybe your 20s, you knew what you kind of planned it ahead of time. Listen, I'm going to go all in my 20s. I'm going to work really hard. Then in my family, my 30s and 40s, and then I'm going to really spend my time with that. Maybe you've even thought that far ahead, and that's great as well. But regardless, it does not necessarily matter your goal. It could be working on your wellness. Maybe you need to take a little time off from work. Maybe you need a little take time away from friends. Because every time you're with them, well, you're eating poor food, you're drinking alcohol, and those things are not conducive to getting yourself well. So what I'm saying to you is that there's always going to be a sacrifice, okay? It doesn't mean lifelong, but it certainly means a temporary sacrifice. In order to be able to do the things that you want the most that you regret not doing. So always understand that there will be a sacrifice, and that's because it is difficult in life until we understand the grand scheme of things and realize that we can have it all to the level that we want, right? But if you're like, I want to develop the next SpaceX, we'll say, right? You want to be the next Elon Musk, whatever it might be. Understand that you're most likely working 80-hour weeks, probably 100, right? You're working every day towards that because it's such a monumental mission. Now, if Elon said, and I don't know Elon, but it's like, oh, well, I also want to spend 6 hours a day with my kids, probably not going to work, right? Probably not going to work. So, but we can have all of the things that we want, but we have to understand that there's certain timelines. And as Jim Rohn used to say, there's seasons of life. So the season of life that you're in right now, and I've given this talk at actually many seminars, the season of life that I'm in right now is I'm very passionate about my work. There's nothing really that I'm more passionate about. However, there's nothing that I love more than my family. So the season of life that I'm in right now, even though I want to be working all day, working my mission, doing podcasts, doing more video, doing interviews, doing all these other things that I want to create. As passionate I am about that, and it doesn't get much higher for most people. It doesn't get more intense because I can be very intense. It's still not more than my family. So what do? Well, again, you have to look at this from your perspective as well. For me, the season of life I'm in right now is family. It's still more important. And so even though I need to sacrifice a couple hours a day with my work, that I could move forward a couple more hours a day. What's that? 10 more hours a week, right? And I take the weekends off because that's all family time. So I could be at another week of work per month if I did 10 more hours per week, right? 2 more hours a day. That's another week per month. I get 12 more weeks. I get another quarter of work a year. And I've talked about this when I've reviewed the 12-week year and the systems that I've used. And I believe that has allowed me to move quickly and progress in life. However, that time now needs to be spent more with family, and it has been. And that's something that I'm very cognizant of because that would be a bigger regret. Even more than career and all the things I'm looking to achieve, if I didn't do right by my family, that would be a bigger regret. I'm sharing a little bit more personal with me today simply because I believe you're going to be able to understand that there's a price that we all need to pay for what we want out of life. And we have to decide, is it worth it? And for me, I can say emphatically, yes. I'm not going to be able to move as quickly forward as I would like with my work. However, I'm willing to pay that price. I'm still working. It's not like I'm not working 8 hours a day. I am. But it's more important for me to make sure that my girls see me around, that I support them, that they know that I love them, that I'm teaching them life lessons, that I'm there with them before work and after work so they see my face, that I'm having dinner with them every night of the week, right? It used to be 6 nights of the week when I work really late on Wednesdays. Now it's every night of the week. And that's one of those things that I've really learned. And that doesn't mean that's able to be done for everyone. It's not, because I wasn't able to do that for, the last 8 years, right? And some people work 2 or 3 jobs and they're working night shifts. And again, that's a sacrifice they're making. Is it worth it? Yes, because now they're able to keep their kids out of poverty. They're able to pay for the schools. You have to understand, people are in different situations in life. I'm in a truly blessed situation. I have a lot to be grateful for. It didn't necessarily start out that way. I went through a lot of suffering, sacrifice issues in terms of my health, mental and physical health. And I was able to overcome that. And I simply want to share that with all of you. I want to share that with family. And I just really want to live by the philosophy of what would you regret not doing? And that's it. And you'll write down, I would love for you to write down 10 things in life. It doesn't have to be 10. It's even better if it's a shorter list. It's easier for you to implement. Write down the 5 or 10 things that you would regret not doing in your life. Now look at the ones that can be done 10 years from now. Because you don't even just put those aside. There's so much to do. Don't worry about those right now. There's places I want to visit and travel to. Okay, I would regret not going there. Not important right now. Just that doesn't matter. I can visit there 10 years from now. They're not going anywhere, right? Many of you know that I have an archaeological side to me. There's places I want to visit from an archaeological perspective that I think would enrich my life, and I would very much enjoy them. Very much enjoy that history. It can be done 10 years from now. What do I need to do right now? So if you can get that top 10 list and you can begin to whittle it down to what should you do right now? And then also, how many months or years might it take in order to get there? Might it take a little bit more savings? Might it take a little bit more reading, certifications, education? What is it going to take? Understand that there's a little bit of sacrifice that needs to be paid. But that sacrifice is honestly, it can be enjoyable because it's part of your growth. And then also look at it, is it worth it? Because you have to decide at the end of the day, is it worth it to you? And if it is, then you have to go all in. You will enjoy a deeper, richer life once you decide to play all out, when you go all in on something. And when you're all in, you could feel that energy surge through your body. So when I'm done with work at the end of the day, I know that, hey, listen, maybe I got to check in a little later with the team, whatever it is. But right now, I am all in going to see my girls. And that's it. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to go, I've been teaching them archery lately, so we've been doing that. I'm going to start teaching them martial arts. Many of you know that I've did martial arts for over 20 years. So I'm going to start teaching them martial arts while we're all at home. These are all things that I get excited then about doing. And my energy, my excitement can flow to them. And they can start to get different experiences. And as I'm coaching them in archery, and not that I'm an expert at that by any means, I have a coach in archery that I'm learning from other people. I'm watching videos. But I can teach them lessons while we're going through those things. So just wanted to give you a little insight as to where I am in my own life. Remember, these Mindset and Motivation Monday shows are as much for me as therapy as hopefully they are helping you out as well. But we just need a deeper level of self-exploration and understanding that I really believe that we can live the lives that we want if we simply become a little bit more self-aware. We know what we want. We know what we don't want. We begin to map out a plan of how we're going to achieve it. We don't have to have all the answers, and we simply begin to move forward on a daily basis. If you do that, I have no doubt that you will achieve that life that you've been dreaming of. Because as I always say, it's not a matter of if you will achieve your goals, but rather when. Thank you so much for tuning into today's show. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. And of course, if this show was helpful, please do feel free to share it with anyone else you believe it could serve. Ever wonder what the best sauna, blue blockers, sleep trackers, wake lights, salt lamps, or other health gadgets are? Or what about the top non-toxic mattresses, sheets, soaps, bath products, toothpaste, and cookware? Or would you like to know the cleanest choices for hemp parts, meal delivery services, supplements, and much more? I personally curated, researched, and now created a resource page of all of my top picks that continues to grow each week. These are the exact products I use in my own life, with my family, in my private practice, and they're the ones I trust. To find out all of my up-to-date recommendations and all the details, simply head on over to StephenCabral.com/resources.